I'm here with Sophia Wood from Friends of Wallacea.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm a big salsa dancer. I love to dance salsa. And so I end up spending quite a bit of time at salsa clubs here in Mexico City. And one of them, called Mama Rumba, is also in the Roma Norte neighborhood. And they serve Cuban food there as well. So, I mean, usually I end up having mojitos more than food while I'm out dancing. But I know that they serve a wide variety of Cuban food there as well. My favorite Caribbean dish, especially that I had in Guyana, was saltfish and bake. I'd never had that before. It's kind of a typical Guyanese breakfast, at least, with sort of like a shredded dried fish in a fried almost like a patty or bread. And I had that in many days, many places all over the country, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I was a bit surprised to have fish for breakfast. That's not really usual as an American, but I actually really, really loved it. But the best restaurant meal that I had in Georgetown was at Backyard Café. It was excellent on Rose Street and Corlita Street. The owner was trained with Gordon Ramsay, and then he came back and wanted to make really unique Guyanese cuisine. They change the menu all the time, and you can sort of pick fish or meat with as much rum as you wanted. And it was a fantastic evening. I highly recommend it.
You said the chef trained with Gordon Ramsay.
Yes.
So it's like a high class Caribbean restaurant. Is it Caribbean food they're selling there, or is it international food?
It's Guyanese food. So he really wanted to, again, exemplify Caribbean and Guyanese cuisine for the world. So everything is locally purchased. Everything is, prepared. Obviously, he's added his own flares and touches and experimenting with different flavors, but all of it comes from a Caribbean base. So we ate fish that was native to Guyana, one that was from saltwater, another from freshwater, all prepared with local spices. Obviously, ecotourism is a very broad term that we sometimes use to describe what we do. Another term that we like to use is regenerative tourism, and the real kind of definition of that is to leave the place that you're visiting better than you found it. And sort of the way that we focus on doing that is ensuring that the money that you're spending is going to local communities always, and that those communities are dedicated to doing something with it, either working on local community development, making sure that there's job opportunities or healthcare or whatever local projects that they deem important, and they're investing that in the community, and also dedicated to conservation efforts. So a lot of rural communities, and particularly Indigenous communities, protect really large areas of wilderness, particularly in Guyana.
The Guyanese people, you've met people on the coast, which is, as you say, 90% of the population, and the people living in the heart of the country, which is only 10%. Now, you're probably one of the only few people to know how different are the people, dialect-wise, accent-wise, look-wise, even.
I'd say one of the things that actually most impressed me or surprised me about Guyana was just how diverse every part of the country was. I'd say, obviously, largely demographically, the communities that live in the interior and outside of the main cities are Indigenous, and they come from 9 different Indigenous groups, at least, if more, at least nine recognized groups. And there's a huge amount of variability between languages spoken between those groups. They're largely language-based groups. And all of the languages are extremely different. I am not an expert on Guyanese Indigenous history, so there may be some that are closer related than others. But in my experience, the languages were very, very different from each other, despite communities sometimes living even in the same regions. Whereas on the coast, you do really have a huge cultural melting pot of African descendants, Chinese descendants, East Indian descendants, and Indigenous people. Our commitment and our passion is to protect wild places through tourism and working with local communities.